Shalom, hello. I'm Shoshana Litman, a Magida, a Jewish storyteller. And I have a story that's just right for this time of year. It's almost Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year. And this is a very well-known Rosh Hashanah story. It was written down by Eli Peretz, a great Yiddish writer. And my cousin, Eli Margolus, may his memory be for a blessing, he wrote it down, translated it into English so that I could turn it back into an oral story for you. Eli Peretz was known for taking oral stories and writing them down. So here we go in the opposite direction. Same story. Sometimes it's called If Not Higher, other times perhaps even higher, which is the way I prefer. Now, at this time of year, we're encouraged to say, sorry. If I have done anything that offended you, please accept my apologies. And it should be done person to person, not just online. And we need to actually change our behavior so we don't do those not so good things anymore and make better choices and make ourselves better people. So if you have done something and you want to say sorry in Hebrew, you would say slicha. And if you had a lot of sorries to say, you would call them slichot. Or more Yiddish way of saying it would be slichos. So there are what are known as penitential prayers, slichos prayers, that are said just before Rosh Hashanah, very early in the morning. And in Nemirov, in the Ukraine where the story takes place, they take their sorry saying very seriously. And they get up before the crack of dawn to say their slichos prayers. Everyone in town, men, women, and children, the men in the study hall, the women and children, wherever, whenever they could, would say these prayers, everyone except the rabbi. The great Rabbi of Nemirov was nowhere to be seen at this time. He wasn't in the study hall. He wasn't in the street or the marketplace. He wasn't in his home. You could go check. The door would be open. Who would steal from the great Rabbi of Nemirov? And probably didn't have much to steal anyways. But if you went there, you would not find him there. Disappeared. Now people would say, this is a busy time for a rabbi because all the Jews are praying to heaven. We're praying for a good livelihood, maybe for a good match for our child, for health, for peace, for the world. And so the rabbi wants to make sure that all our prayers are answered, so he probably has gone to heaven to make sure that happens. Everyone believed it, except the Litvak. A Litvak is a person from Lithuania. And at that time, the Jews from Lithuania were known to be very serious about their Jewish practice. They studied the laws, know them inside and outside, but they weren't so interested in the mystical texts and probably not in the stories either. So he definitely did not believe in miracles. And he would say, even our teacher, our great teacher, Moses didn't ascend to heaven alive. Completely. Fair enough. So the people would say, well, if you're so smart, where does he go then? And he would say, I don't know and I don't care. But really he did care and he wanted to find out. And so at night, when everyone had gone to sleep, that Litvak snuck into the rabbi's house and hid under his bed. Now, if you and I tried this, which we would not do, of course, but if we did, after a while, we might fall asleep. But not this Litvak. He could recite an entire book of the Talmud, maybe about brachas, maybe about blessings, maybe about vows, I don't know, but whatever it was, it kept him awake so that he could hear when the holy rabbi sighed. If you want to, you can sigh now. This is a very good time for sighing. Such a sigh. It was as if he carried all the troubles of the world on his shoulders. Ah, you think you have troubles? It was even worse back then. So he did this sigh, but the Litvak, he didn't feel the pain or the sadness the rabbi felt. No, all he felt was fear. He shook like a leaf. What if the rabbi knows that I'm here? But if the rabbi knew, he didn't let on. Now, this was the time when people were to get up to pray, and the shamus, the one who cares for the synagogue, he went by and knocked on all the shutters saying, "Wake up, it's time to pray! Wake up, it's time to pray!" So everybody got up. You could hear all the feet hitting the ground, and people ran around doing the things that they normally do, washing their hands, saying their blessings, maybe grabbing a quick bite to eat or not. And off they went after they got dressed, heading out. But not the rabbi. The rabbi waited. And then you could hear his feet hit the floor. And then he did the things that good Jew does, washing the hands carefully over each hand, a little water splashing, special blessings. And then he went to the closet and he got this big bundle out, and it was full of the clothes of a simple peasant, rough linen pants and rough shirt and hat and a thick leather belt with iron studs in it. And then he went over to a shelf and got out a sharp axe, put that in the belt, and he already had a rope hanging out of his pocket. And then he headed out the door, and the Litvak followed. And you could hear the rabbi's boots going clump, 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 while the Litvak's heart went thump, thump, thump. Couldn't hear much else. It was so quiet. And no light to be seen. Still dark. Maybe you'd hear someone cry out in pain from a sick room, or maybe someone crying out from the study hall or the prayer hall. But all else you would hear was the rabbi's boots going thump, 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 and the Litvak's heart going thump, thump, thump. Well, the rabbi continued to the edge of town where he came to a forest. And once he was in the forest, he found a fallen tree. He got out his axe, chopped up that tree, chopped the branches thinner and thinner, some thicker, and then he wrapped those up into a bundle with the rope and put those on his shoulder and started heading back into town with the Litvak following close behind. And the rabbi's boots went clump, 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 and the Litvak's heart went thump, thump, thump. Well, the rabbi got to a part of town that people don't go to much anymore. It was really run down, and there was this really run-down shack there, and he went up to it and knocked on the window. And there was this very weak, very frail voice that said, "Who is it?" Well, the Litvak recognized that as a voice of a sick Jewish woman. And the rabbi said in a very low voice, it didn't sound like his voice at all, it sounded more like a rough peasant. He said, "It's I." And the woman said, "Who's I?" And the rabbi said, "It's I, Vassal, the woodcutter. And I've brought you some wood, real cheap, good deal, only 6 pennies. And the woman said, Vassal, that's very kind of you. But I'm a poor widow. I don't even have 1 penny, let alone 6. Oh, go away. I can't pay for your wood." Well, Vassal just walked right into the house. The door was open. He said, "I know you have a good God you can trust. You should trust him to pay. I trust you. I'm going to give you the wood." And he just put it down on the floor. And she said, "Oh, Vassal, that is so kind of you. But I'm too weak to get up and put it into the stove. And my son, he's off looking for work in another town. What can I do with this wood?" Said Vassal, "don't worry, I will do this for you." And so he picks up the wood and he starts putting it into that old cold stove. And as he does, he says the first part of the Slichos prayers, and his voice is so sad. He's feeling so sorry for this woman and all the people suffering in his town and in the world. And then he lit a match to light the wood, and as he did that, he said the second part of the Slichos prayer, and now there was more joy in his voice because he knew this warmth was going to help this woman. And so he lit that wood, and as it caught fire, he shut that stove and said the third part of the Slichos prayers, and his voice were full of joy and happiness because he knew this woman's going to be helped by this little act that he has done. Well, the Litvak didn't need to see anymore, and he ran back to his room. And after some contemplation, some thought, and changing, he did what we call teshuvah. He turned himself around, and he became a student of the great Rabbi of Nemirov. And so every year at this time, when there's the time for the Slichos prayer, and Rosh Hashanah was on its way, and the people would say, "Where's our rabbi?" They couldn't find him. They'd say, "Oh, he's gone to heaven to help our prayers reach heaven." The Litvak doesn't scoff, and he doesn't poke fun. He just smiles, a very sweet smile, and he says, "Perhaps our holy rabbi rises even higher." May we all rise with the good acts that we can do every day. Shana tova u'metuka. May this year be sweet and healthy for you and yours and for all the world. Thank you. Toda rabba. Adam.